Hey guys, I hope you're staying warm today. Okay, so we are moving on in Unit 7. Today we're going to talk about how do you solve quadratics using the quadratic formula. So we stopped yesterday and we were learning how to simplify radicals, right? And you have that maze, so make sure you turn that in that you're working on. So how are we going to apply that? We're going to use it when we use the quadratic formula to solve quadratics. So for today, let me actually get into student view here. That'll be okay. Don't forget to do your attendance check-in, and then you're going to have this activity right here, and then I'm going to go over the notes. Again, you should be getting these notes from this file right here. So let me bring this up. We're going to use our calculator today too. So calculator is going to come in really handy today. So what is the quadratic formula? The quadratic formula is really good because you can solve absolutely any quadratic equation. Remember, quadratic equations look like this. You can solve absolutely any quadratic with the quadratic formula. So you remember our first method on Tuesday was learning to solve by factoring. But in order to factor, remember how you have to fill out the x and do a times c in the top and b in the bottom? And the ones I gave you that you practiced on had actually already been factored. But remember, I always call it the magic combo. We're looking for this magic combo over here. Well, the thing is that when you're trying to factor, you do not always have a magic combo. There's not always two numbers that multiply to be the a times c value in the top and add together to be the value in the bottom, the b value. So that's where the quadratic formula comes in really handy because it works for absolutely any quadratic. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it because there's a third method we're going to learn tomorrow that actually is much faster. So that's the one we're really going to focus on. But we do need to know what the quadratic formula is because you will use it a lot in Algebra 2. And I don't want you to go to Algebra 2 and think, I've never seen this before. So it's pretty simple. Here is the formula right here. Now it is a long formula. However, you do not have to memorize this. It is given to you on the STAR test, and I would never ask you to memorize this. I did memorize it actually. I think somebody's coming in my room, guys. Hang on. I memorized it by using a song. Hold on just a second, guys. Let me pause this. Sorry about that. Somebody came in my room. We're good. Okay. So what happened to my thing? There it is. So I'm going to sing the song for you. Okay. You ready? Everybody loves it when Miss Robinson sings a song. It's to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. Again, you don't have to memorize it, but I did because I sing the song. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. See, I never forgot it. I learned that when I was like in 9th grade, and it's stuck in my brain. So anytime I see the quadratic formula, I start singing that to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel in my brain. Anyway, I hope that's stuck in your brain now and your curse too. Okay, so here's what you do. The first thing you have to do is make sure the equation you're given is equal to 0. And we'll see this in a minute. And then you're going to plug in the values for your a, b, and c. Now, a, b, and c are not new values. Notice, we've already looked at a, b, and c. We had to find those when we were factoring, right? Same value. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make up one, okay? So let's say my a value is, I don't know, -2. Let's say my b value is 4 and my c value is 1. I would take those values and I would plug them into the formula. So the x equals, that's our solution. That's what we're trying to do is solve for x, is the opposite of whatever b is. So for this one, it's -2. So you have to take the sign. Remember, I told you all this when we're factoring too. Pay attention to your signs of a, b, and c. They're super important. Our b value here is 4. Our c value is 1. Whoops, that's where the a goes. C goes here. Our a, again, is -2, and then a goes in the bottom. Y'all, did y'all see what I did? I totally made a mistake. I put the a value in for b. B goes first, guys, 4. That's the hardest part. You have to know what a, b, and c are, and you have to keep them straight. So that's what you would do. You would plug it into the formula just like that, and I'm going to show you how to get the calculator to actually simplify this for you, okay? So here we go. Let's look at a couple of examples together on the next page. So here's one. We're given 3x squared plus 4x minus 4 equals 0. You just plug it in. So A, remember, is the first value. B is here. And here's my C value. So that's what I'm going to put here. 3, 4, negative 4. Okay, so B goes first. So B is 4. Then we have to put B again here. Then I use my A value, which is 3. I put it here, and it goes in the bottom. And then C is negative 4. Now we want to simplify this. I'm going to zoom in. So we're going to simplify. So x equals, well, the opposite. Notice this minus sign out here. It's super important in the formula. The opposite of whatever it is right now. So it's positive 4. So this is going to become negative 4. And then you have this plus minus. I'm going to show you what this means in just a minute, but we need to leave that. That's part of the formula. Then we do our square root. Now, I need to figure out what all this stuff under my square root is. This 4 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 4. So if you use parentheses in the calculator, you can get the calculator will tell you this. So here's what you do. Everywhere there's a square box here, we're going to use parentheses to represent it. 4, okay, notice I put parentheses around it, squared, minus, the 4 is part of the formula. Now I'm going to use parentheses because I put a 3 in there, parentheses, and I put a negative 4 in there. Enter. Oh, all that's 64. So I'm going to replace all that stuff I circled with, oh my gosh, go away. Click something on the iPad here, with 64. Okay, so then I just keep writing my formula all over. Well, 2 times 3, I can figure that out, right? That's 6. I don't need a calculator for that. Okay, we're going to keep going. We're going to simplify a little more. X equals negative 4 plus or minus. Well, what is the square root of 64? That's what we need to figure out now. So I come over here, second square root. Don't do the square root first, like leave it. I'm going to show you why in a minute. It's 8. So the square root of 64. So now I'm simplifying this piece here. The square root of 64 is 8. All over 6. Now this is actually 2 answers. Remember how I told you guys when we were solving quadratics, you usually have 2 answers? It's x equals negative 4, grab a different color, plus 8 divided by 6. And then our second answer is, should I match pink? X equals negative 4. Oh, now we do the minus 8. That's really all that plus minus means. It's 2 answers. They just stack it together and say it's 1. So they don't have to write it. So now let's simplify our final 2 answers here. I have x equals, well, what's negative 4 plus 8? Negative 4 plus 8 is 4. So I have 4 over 6. You could do this in the calculator. Negative 4 plus 8. Just do the top first. 4 divided by 6. Oh, it's a decimal, so now I'm going to write it math. Enter, enter. Oh, it's 2/3. That simplifies to 2/3. There's one answer. And then x equals negative 4 minus 8. So here I go again. Negative 4, subtract 8, enter. Do your numerator first. Now divide by your denominator. Divided by 6. Oh, that's negative 2. That one wasn't a fraction. There's your 2 answers. So these problems are long, okay, because you have to simplify. It's a lot of numbers simplifying here. Let's look at one more example together. And I'm going to show you why I told y'all when you're with the part I circled in blue up here, I'm going to explain to you why I said don't put the square root in the calculator there first. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in over here. Okay, so here's our problem. My A value is the 5. B value is negative 2. And my C value is negative 1. We have to take those signs with it. Those signs are important. So here I go. X equals the opposite of B, which is negative 2. So it's going to be the opposite of negative 2, plus or minus negative 2 minus 4. Okay, so now I put 4 times 5. And remember, A goes in the bottom as well. And then negative 1 is my C value. Okay, so now I'm going to use the calculator to help me with this when I go to simplify it. So X equals, well, the negative, negative 2. Notice that. There's 2 negatives in a row. That now becomes positive 2. Plus or minus the square root. I'm just going to leave that for now. And then the bottom, I have 2 times 5, which is going to be 10. Okay, so now I'm going to use the calculator to simplify this right here. This whole piece right here. I'm not going to put the square root in. Remember, see how I wrote the square root down here in my problem? Okay, so I'm just going to put what's the boxes here. So I'm going to put parentheses around it. It's super important, guys. You have to put parentheses around this stuff, or the calculator is going to give you the wrong answer, because you have to include that negative in parentheses. Negative 2 squared, and then you can say subtract 4, and now do your parentheses. So anytime where you plugged in a number, you need to put parentheses around it. Trust me. Okay, so that's all that stuff underneath that I circled in blue. Here it is. I just noticed instead of boxes, I used parentheses. Super important. It's 24. Okay, so here I go. I'm going to simplify it again. X equals, and if you wanted, you could go ahead and separate it out into 2 answers, the plus and the minus right now, but I'm going to wait. Okay, so I need to know what is the square root, whoops, I hit the wrong button. Square root of 24. Oh, it's a decimal. Oh, I can't take the square root. But remember, yesterday what we were doing, we learned to simplify. So here I go. I'm going to ask the calculator to help me with this. 24 divided by x, that's how we get our factors, blue button, graph. Okay, so I could do 1 times 24, and you probably need to go back in your notes and look at that wheel of perfect squares that we filled in yesterday. I'm looking for some of these that are underneath, or ones that are on the outside of the circle that were perfect squares. I don't want to use 1. 2 was not on there, 12 wasn't, 3 is not, 8's not, 4 is, 4 and 6. There we go. There's my two numbers right there, because 4 is on the outside. Okay, so x is equal to 2 plus or minus. I'm going to do this. I'm going to write out all the steps for you. So I'm still just looking at that 24 that's underneath my radical sign there. And we just said that we could write 24 as 4 times 6. So let me do it. 4 times 6. That's all I changed. And now it's 4 times 6. Okay, so x equals 2 plus or minus. Well, notice here, guys, that I can take the square root of 4. So I'm going to, and I'm going to bring it outside and sit it out front here. The square root of 4 is 2. And it still leaves me with a square root. And what's left under my square root is the 6. So that's all I did was simplify that piece, divided by 10. So now I'm ready to break this apart into 2 answers. But if I do that, here's what would happen. In order to break this apart into 2 answers, I would do 2 plus 2 square root 6. But wait, isn't 2 square root 6 just square root of 24 simplified? So isn't that going to be the same decimal? And I don't want a decimal answer. This is how we get we call it an exact answer. So anytime you have a decimal answer, we cannot write out all these decimals. So we end up rounding it or chopping it off, and it's now an approximation. It's not exact. So when this happens, you leave the square root in your answer. Your answer is going to look really nasty. It's going to look like this crazy square root thing, but just leave it. That's your answer. You can still write this as 2 separate answers. This is x equals 2 plus 2 square root 6 divided by 10. And it's x equals 2 minus 2 square root 6 divided by 10. There's your 2 answers right there. But you know what, guys? You also could have just left it like this. A lot of times, like this with the star. A lot of times they'll leave it like that. They won't break it apart if it has the square root in it. But you can write it as 2 separate ones, one with a plus, one with a minus, but we're going to leave the square root. So anytime you end up with an answer that looks, let me go ahead and make this full screen here, that looks like one with the square root, you don't have to take it any further. However, if you get a number like we did up here with square root of 64, the calculator told us that was 8. We could take the square root of 64. So we want to go ahead and work it out to our final answers. Okay, so that's 2 examples. Now, I have posted an assignment here today. Like I said, today, this is as far, I have to do this, far as we're going to go for this, I want you to see it. I want you to know what to do with it. You will practice this a lot more in Algebra 2, but it's important that we see it in Algebra 1, and I'll make some connections to it tomorrow too. Here, there's only 5 problems on here, and I've given you the template. So remember, when you type it in, this one has parentheses instead of boxes. Same thing though. And you can identify your A, B, C. I want you to choose 3 of them and work them on scratch paper. Work them on scratch paper, and then you're going to upload. You'll upload your picture at the end. Okay. Oh, it's not. Let me see. It should do this. If you get this, you may have to authorize here. If it tells you that, if this doesn't show up for you guys, let me know, because it should be showing up right now. I'm not sure what's happening. Anyway, so if you get that error, let me know. But it should be showing up for you guys like this, and have a submit button at the top. Okay. If somebody watches this and it's not showing up, email me so I can fix it. All right.